Good morning, everyone. Tonight we begin the day of Tisha B'Av, the day that we mourn the destruction of the temple. Jews around the world will sit on the ground and read the Book of Lamentations, remembering the destruction of the temple and the exiles and the suffering of the Jewish people over the past 2,000 years. And we'll begin the fast of Tisha B'Av, which will last from 8:11 here in Palm Beach tonight till 8:37 tomorrow night, almost 25 hours. It's the only fast besides Yom Kippur that we fast, not just from the morning to the evening, but the entire 25 hours. Matter of fact, I remember when I went to camp when I was 12 years old, my father sat me down and said, the custom is that 3 fasts before your bar mitzvah, you start training to fast. And since this Tisha B'Av will be the first of the 3 fasts before your bar mitzvah, you need to fast. And the Tisha B'Av was the first time in my life that I ever fasted for 24 plus hours. Tomorrow in the book of Kinot, we're going to read the story of the 10 martyrs who were murdered by the Romans for being Jewish and studying Torah. And when we come to the story of Hanina ben Trajan, the Talmud tells us, and we read it in the Lamentations tomorrow, that Rabbi Hanina ben Trajan, the great sage, was a teacher of Torah in public. So as a punishment, the Romans took a Torah scroll and wrapped it around his body and then set the Torah scroll with him inside in flames. And as the flames were consuming the Torah and his life, his students who were observing said to him, "Rebbe, what do you see?" And Rabbi Hanina ben Trajan said to his students, "I see the parchment burning, but the letters are flying off in the air." And what Rabbi Hanina ben Trajan was saying to his students in his final breaths of life is that they could burn our Torah scrolls, they could destroy our temple, the Romans, but the words of the Torah will fly off and live on through the Torah we teach our children and our grandchildren, and will live on from generation to generation. And how correct and prophetic Rabbi Hanina ben Trajan was, because here we are 2,000 years later, and we're still remembering, and we're still mourning, and we're still observing the Torah as a Jewish people as we live on. Our rabbis teach us how we merit redemption through love of our fellow Jew and our fellow man, unconditional love. And we all know that yesterday was a very painful day in Israel, when just 2 days ago the government voted on the judicial reform measures, and this split the country in half. And whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, that's not the question. The question is, can we be united as a people despite our differences? And I saw a very heartwarming video that a blogger did. He went out into the street and he stopped people on the street in Hebrew and he said, "Tell me, are you for or against the judicial reforms?" And the first fellow looks at him and says, "I'm against." And this video blogger said, "Well, I'm for." And he says, "Really?" And he says, "But could I get a hug?" And the guy says, "Of course." And they lean in and hug each other and embrace each other. And then this video blogger says, "Here, I want to give you a gift." And he hands him a bar of chocolate and a bottle of wine. And then a minute later, he stops someone else on the street. And he says, "Tell me, are you for or against judicial reform?" And this fellow says, "I am for it." And the video blogger says, "Well, I'm against it." And the guy says, "Really?" And he says, "Yeah, but could I get a hug? Chibuk?" He says, "Of course." And they hug each other. And this fellow says to him, "The most important thing is that we love each other." And after stopping a number of people, and each one, whatever that person says, he says, "I'm the opposite. But could I get a hug?" And they keep on hugging each other. This video blogger looks into the camera and says, "I'm not for or against judicial reform. I'm only for one thing. Avat Achim. Love for our brothers and sisters." That's the message of Tisha B'Av. Not just in Israel, but around the world. Having just returned from Israel, you see firsthand the miracle of the return to Jerusalem, the rebuilding of Israel, all the prophecies of Rabbi Akiva quoted when he saw the temple being destroyed. He said, "I'm not weeping, I'm laughing, because I already foresee that, as the prophet said, Jerusalem will be plowed like a field. But when you plow a field, it's to plant a beautiful garden, to plant more vegetation and fruit. So too, we will witness the blossoming and the return to Israel and Jerusalem. We began to merit to see this in our generation. May it only continue and prosper. Have a meaningful fast.